Let's be honest, most of us did not learn about sex or gender in school. We learned it from whispers in the hallways between our peers and from what was said to us. And no, I'm not talking about the 20 minutes awkward biology class in school. I'm talking about the stories we are told, the silence we are raised in, and the rules that come with simply existing in your body, especially if you're a woman, queer, trans, or you live with a disability. Culture shapes our perception of all that, and whether we know it or not, it shapes us in so many ways. Before we learn anything about anatomy in biology class or consent, culture is our first curriculum. It already teaches us what to think about our bodies, our gender roles, and our desires. In a lot of African households, conversations about sex are taboo. A girl hitting puberty is pulled aside and want to stay away from the boys or risk getting pregnant. The young girls are also socialized to attach their worth to their virginity, but boys, they are rarely told anything. In Catholic Latin America, purity is glorified for women, while machismo culture encourages male dominance and sexual freedom. Girls and women are told to keep their virginity for the most worthy man, while boys are urged to explore in order to be seen as masculine enough. In some Asian cultures, even talking about menstruation is seen as dirty or shameful. Women are likened to white cloth and men are likened to gold to further buttress the notion that women can be made impure while men can't. Girls are made to feel like their bodies are a problem, one to hide, and never one to fully embrace. Unfortunately, all these teachings from different cultures have one big thing in common, which is control. Controlling who has access to knowledge, to pleasure, to autonomy, and that control often starts at home. Gender is often treated like it's biological or fixed, but history and culture will tell you a very different story, okay? In pre-colonial Africa, gender was not binary actually. For example, among the Yorubas, spiritual roles were not always assigned by sex. In indigenous North American cultures, two-spirit people have always been respected members of society that were recognized beyond the male-female binary. For most, they can choose to either identify as masculine masculine, masculine feminine, feminine masculine, and feminine feminine. In India, Hijras, people outside the male-female binary, have existed for centuries, playing spiritual and social roles. Some Aboriginal communities use the term sister boys and brother boys in addition to the binary genders, in order not to put people in a box. Yet, colonization brought Western binaries and criminalized gender diversity. So when we talk about gender inclusivity today, we are not just being radical or controversial for the sake of it. We are remembering who we were before patriarchy and colonialism reshaped our cultures. Let's be clear. Access to reproductive health is not just a medical issue, okay? It's deeply cultural and political. Some communities still practice chupadi, where menstruating women are banished to sheds. In rural Ghana and Nigeria, some girls miss school because they can't afford sanitary pads, and people barely talk about periods openly. In the United States, abortion laws are heavily influenced by religious and cultural conservatism, not science or public health data. In Latin America, the Green Scarf movement, led by feminists, has changed public opinion and policy on abortion by challenging these deep cultural norms. Culture often decides who gets access to care and who doesn't, and those left out are almost always marginalized communities like young people, people living with disabilities, queer people, and low-income communities. Religion is one of the strongest forces currently shaping culture and our ideas around sex and gender. In Islamic and Christian households, sex is only spoken about or considered within marriage. Christians are big proponents of purity culture, which is a set of ideas that a girl or woman's value is attached to their virginity. So in order to have value and be considered as a woman of virtue for marriage, women are expected to abstain from sex until marriage. but rarely do you hear conversations about healthy intimacy, consent, or pleasure even within marriages. In many cultures, sex education is seen as corrupting, but the silence and stigma attached to sex education does not protect young people. It just leaves them uninformed and vulnerable because, let's be honest, with the current situation of overly sexual content, it's hard to fully keep teens away from consuming this content. If we keep using the older tactics of silence, how do we responsibly educate and direct on what's healthy sexual relationships and what's not? Silence makes it very easy for shame to also become a tool that is passed down through generations. In many instances, shame silences survivors, justifies abuse, and forces people to navigate their sexual and reproductive health in fear. Let's also talk about the people who are completely left out of the conversation. People with disabilities are often desexualized and seen as either asexual or incapable of making decisions about their bodies. If you're a person living with disabilities, I want you to know that having a physical or cognitive disability should not take away from your sexuality. Be you, express yourself as you see fit, irrespective of what society and others think, okay? Unfortunately, in some countries, people living with disabilities are forcibly sterilized or denied access to contraception. Even in societies where they can have access to reproductive health, there are several mitigating factors such as accessibility issues if they decide to go for in-person consultations. Queer and trans people face exclusion not just from healthcare systems but from their own families and communities. In many countries like Ghana, the campaigns for LGBTQ+ rights are met with violent response, with the most common reason for objection being it is not part of the Ghanaian culture. However, the 18th and 19th century Ashanti courts in the Ashanti Kingdom had male slaves who served as concubines and dressed like women. Interesting. In ancient Egypt, male lovers have been found buried together. In addition to acceptance of same-sex relationships, ancient Egyptians also acknowledged a third gender. Many deities were portrayed androgynously, and goddesses such as Mu and Sekhmet often had penises. This erasure is rooted in the idea that only certain bodies, certain relationships, and certain choices are valid. But our cultures can do better, to be honest. They were better in the past, before colonialism. Colonialism introduced religions like Christianity into constitutions and schools and attached religious values to everything that existed before their introduction. This unfortunately has resulted in most individuals seeing the LGBTQ+ community from a moral point of view fueled by their religion. The good news, something can be done to change these narratives. Culture is not fixed, it's dynamic, and every time we speak up, share a story, challenge a norm, we are changing and reshaping it. In Cameroon, students are creating safe spaces on campus to talk about abortion and sexual reproductive health rights. In Mexico, activists are using art and protests to normalize abortion rights. In India, sex-positive educators are reaching thousands on YouTube and Instagram and breaking generational silence. Organization-wise, platforms like How to Use Abortion Pill, Safe to Choose, and FindMyMethod are making information accessible to everyone, regardless of where you live or the language you speak. Culture shapes us, but we also have the power in shaping culture. So ask questions, share your story, support inclusive movements, and learn what harms you. Because whether it's about your period, your gender, or your right to choose, your body is not a source of shame. It's a source of power, okay? And you deserve to understand, protect, and celebrate it irrespective of what society thinks. And always remember, your body is not a societal project. At FindMyMethod, we want you to be informed of your choices and reclaim your bodily autonomy. Sex should be consensual, fun, and pleasurable for all parties. This is why Mika is here to help you with personalized information on safe and pleasurable sex, including supporting you in finding the most suitable contraceptive method for your needs. Chat with Mika on WhatsApp or at FindMyMethod.org. If this video resonated with you, share it. Drop a comment with something you were taught about sex or gender and how you are unlearning it. Let's keep changing culture together.